Currently working on a JVC QL-L2 locked fully automatic system. What is this? Turntable, another linear. Ignore that note right there. That's for a different one. I just wanted to show the inside of this and quickly determine what's wrong here. In this unit, you've got 4 connections. Once you take, it's pretty quick to open up. You've got 4 feet you remove, and then the lid, you got to do a little bit of work here with this mechanism in order to lift the tone arm up. But once you have it up and you remove this little plate right back here, it's really pretty easy to open up. It's kind of like a clamshell. So we've got some boards underneath the surface of which we would be playing our records on. And then down here you've got a little bit more. So I think we can review these. I haven't looked at any theory of operation or anything in the service manual, but fairly quickly I think you can kind of pick up on what's going on. This board here is going to interface all of the buttons that we have. The buttons around here. Not many of them on this unit. Just a few. Okay. And then we have power switch over here, and it has its own little printed circuit board. So like everything has its own printed circuit board here. It's got a little jumper to this control board here. Now, neat, we have a capacitor with an S on it. A couple fuses, so if this thing was completely dead, we would need to target that area. But this is a power supply. We know this because it comes from the transformer right there. But I don't see, do I see a bridge? Yeah, right here. Bridge rectifier, filtering caps for the voltage. I'm assuming maybe some voltage regulation here. That's why we got this interesting heat sink. That's all it's there for. We do have an opto here. And we have an LED strobe here. We can see that around this direction. The opto here, right here on the black piece, that's going to help determine what size of record. The platter itself has some slits in it, so it's able to see through here. And I'm assuming this is strobing, but maybe it's doing more than that. This is a direct drive. We know this because there's no belt. We just have the motor here, and we have a controller board for that motor here, which is pretty complicated. In fact, it's probably the most complicated PCB. We don't see the components, but we certainly can see all the solder joints there. So there's a whole lot of effort being done here to ensure that we're spinning at the right RPM. And I don't know if we can get underneath there with the camera. Nope. Can't get underneath there with the camera to see. But well, maybe from this angle over here, we just see some basic components. But there's an IC here. We can see right in this area, you can see the IC. It says so, IC1. And again, I haven't looked up in the service manual what any of this means, so I'm not sure. And then we got some more control over here on this board, and it's a sparsely populated board. There's not tons and tons of stuff. Not sure what anything is here for sure, but all of our connections from these ribbon cables here are going to handle the buttons. And then these jumpers here are going to go to LED, strobe, and coming from the power supply. So the whole thing is powered, it looks like, from this jumper right here. And then we got the some of the other important parts. Oh, this is our audio. Of course, we got to deal with audio. So we have to have some amplification here on the board. And then that's going to come through here and come out RCA outputs there. We see an L and an R on that little printed circuit board there. We have the carriage control, our tone arm movement. It uses a tuner string, which actually has a little burr in it right there, but it seems like it's strong. And a little worm gear here. And it's caked up with lubrication, so that needs to be cleaned out, and maybe a little bit of lithium grease put back. Here's the old belt. This thing is functional, but just barely. It's very, very slow at moving the tone arm, but the speed measured pretty good. So what do? Well, I find a belt to replace it. So I'll look in my bag of belts and see if I've got something that's close. I haven't really talked about this, and I'm sure people have other ideas, but if I pull this belt off, I can immediately tell you that I don't have anything that is that beefy. But even if I did, I want something that is of a smaller diameter. So we need tension. This thing has lost its, I don't know if we say it's durometer level. It's not as strong as it used to be. So, or bouncy or stretchy. It's actually brittle. And the next step here in its aging process, I would assume, would be to crack completely open. But the fix here is just to get a belt with some tension and clean everything first, right? With rubbing alcohol. And then relube with some lithium grease. At least that's what I'm going to do. And I'm sure there's some hotshot mechanics here that would do something even more. I'll clean out some of these other things. Lots of Q-tips are coming. Now this Opto, I just caught this one. This Opto here must be for the tone arm up-down movement. Yeah, I can see it. See that mechanically moving there. So just to be on the safe side, I will squirt a little Windex on a Q-tip and I'll kind of rub it in there to clean that out. And that's really it. So I'll power this up and give it and it's going to be hard though. Ultimately, you would love to test all of this stuff with it still open. But in this case, I've got to pretty much put it all back together before I can do any testing, which makes this a real piece of crap to try to do any adjustments on if you have issues here, because you can't really access much to this little door. That little door is really there just to get the tone arm up. So anyway, I'll just do the best I can to clean. Oh, we have an Opto here. Gosh, how did I miss that? It's a perfect example of an Opto where we're reading speed because we have the little slit there. And so it's going to open, close, open, close, open, close the beam so ever many times a second based upon how fast it's going. So if that thing's dirty, gosh, the only way to clean that is to lift this completely out. Or I think that the way to go here is to remove the screw, slide this out from underneath that little slit wheel, clean it, slide it back in, put the screw back in. So I'm going to do all those things, and then we'll see how this thing turns out. It's got a really ugly cover, but I don't really care. I just want to fix it. Well, just a little more on where I'm at. I've cleaned up all of this, and I've applied just a very light coating of white lithium grease here after the cleanup. Hopefully you can tell that's cleaned up. That's a lot of yellowing on this wheel, and I've scrubbed it and scrubbed it and scrubbed it on that pulley rather, and just really can't get it any cleaner than what you see. But I manually moved it over the tone arm carriage by just rolling this around, and the tension seems to be just fine. It's not tremendous, and the belt is of a less diameter, but it's doing just fine, and I'm sure it'll work, as I've seen so many of these don't need the exact size belt or the same model number that doesn't exist anymore. I've moved anyway, the whole tone arm carriage, I've moved it out of the way, cleaned all back in there. Light coating after cleaning here of the rod. I put a very light coating of lithium grease there. It looks like I've found another of these little ladybug-like creatures floating around in the bottom of this thing. But that's not all I found in the bottom of this thing. Here's a couple of brown recluse skeletons. They look almost like something off of Alien. I'm sure you've seen these before. And they were right in this area where the LEDs were clean, by the way, no problem. But this is the switchboard where the operator will push the buttons. And it's amazing just how much grime and junk has gotten in here. Probably not from any use that was normal, but certainly more likely to be from storage. which is really the reason why I wanted to get this out, because underneath the plexi here is all kinds of junk. It looks like sand. And I was hoping to find a way to disassemble this particular unit, and I'm sure there is. Maybe I can pop off the clear plastic here and clean this up really good with a product that I use all the time for pinball machines called Novus 2. And I use it all the time to clean plastic, and it's not one of those buffers that you're going to want to buff maybe your desk cover, although it does work good for that. I know that there's a lot of turntable people who want to use other products like the Scratch X 2.0 or something, and that's fine. But anyway, this stuff works very similarly. But I'm going to clean this up, and it's really gross, as you would expect for the area where people are cramming their hands into all the time. And here's where you can see the rest of the spider web. So pretty gross stuff. Here I am all wrapped up with the JVC. I say all wrapped up, not completely. There's still a couple things to do. Took all this apart, and it was really dusty. It came out pretty nice. The little plastic lid comes off fairly easily. The buttons got jumbled around a little bit. I'm not sure why, but and they may have been actually off-centered. I don't know. But this turntable had a really rough life, and I would guess that most of the rough life was in storage. It probably broke its little tone arm belt, and that was the end of it, and people didn't know what to do. I misrepresented this earlier. I called that a strobe, and if it's strobing, it's possible that it is, but I doubt it. It almost looks like an incandescent lamp, and I'm beginning to feel like its point is, whenever the dust cover's on, to give you a little bit of light. One of the things that I did not do, and of course I have the cover off right now because it's so hideous and ugly, I'm embarrassed to show it. One of the things I forgot to do, though, is lubricate the carriage as it moves back and forth. The front side of that carriage needs to be lubricated. I will not tear this thing apart completely, but I'll probably pull the access door off, and I'll use a long stem Q-tip, and I'll throw a little bit of white lithium grease, because I heard it squealing a little bit. I guess I will go ahead and show the cover. The cover is absolutely disgusting. Again, it's probably something that was just abandoned. The piece of equipment was tossed around. My son tells me that this was actually given to him by somebody who just said, hey, here, take this piece of junk. It's ugly, it's hideous. You can have it for free. And then he gave it to me. And it took me a while, but I finally got to it. So the cover's a lost cause. It's pretty rough. I mean, geez. You can actually see through the silver finish on top here on this big gnarly scratch. So it's going to look ugly. There's nothing I can do about it. I'll clean it. I'll rub it with various plastics cleaners, but it's just going to look terrible. I almost want to spray paint it. Maybe pull that plexi out right there where it says JVC, spray paint the thing and put it back together. I don't even know if that's doable, but it's because it's probably glued. Anyway, let's just see how it works. Okay, so unlike some of the other linears that really did a lot, this doesn't do a lot at all. It auto selects 33 or 45. It's supposed to. So if I pull the album off, and I'm going to get fingerprints all over it, and I hate that, it looks like maybe it defaults to 33. But anyway, regardless of that, let's do our first test here. It is on, well, there's our manual speed. I'll put it on 45, and let's just see what it does. Manual speed 45. I'm going to hit the start stop button. There's no fancy tracking going on. It's just going to take off, and hopefully it guesses it right. It is set to 45, and it looks like it's spinning at 45. Yeah, let's bring that down. There we go. There's our proper speed. ELO album. And so it sounds very warbly, but that's how it's supposed to sound. Let's go to a song that doesn't sound so bad or so weird to you. But it has a weird title, The Diary of Horace Wimp. Now, I'm tracking it. I got to do it all by hand here. And visually study it, try to figure out where it's going to go. Watch this tone arm as it comes down. It does not come up and down straight. See that? It jumps over to the left. And it seems like that's what I'm finding with every linear is it tends to do that. It's crazy. Let me bring that over again. See, I got a fingerprint on that track too. I hate that. So scoot her over, drop it. Golly, it's like, man, are you kidding? It keeps doing that. So surely an adjustment, but it's moving all over the place. Gosh, I almost feel like I don't care though, because it's just not a very nice one. You get spoiled whenever you play with some nice turntables, and then you get to this, and you're like, man, it's cool. I'm digging into it to see the technology, and it's just not amazing. Sound quality, I gotta say, the sound quality is really good. And of the last linear ones that I've done lately, whenever we're all done here, it scoots. It'll actually get moving pretty quick now that it's all cleaned up. And if you listen, you'll hear my squealer, and that's where the carriage is dragging the bottom without any lube, near the end here. Well, it wasn't so bad that time, but I do need to lube that up. All right, so we're still showing 33. I will not touch the speed at all. I'm gonna pull this album off. Quick pause. Okay, I'm back. I'm gonna put the 45 hole adapter on, and I will put this test 45 on. My test 45 at seal. Speed still showing 33. I'm going to go to start, and I'm going to worry that the tone arm's going to drop early. Let's see what happens. Cruising on just fine, and the RPM is set at 45. So at least some of this detected it and it worked properly. How about a repeat? I've not tried that, so let's lock in a repeat. We should get an LED confirmation. I just did. By the way, if you hit, like some of these other ones, if you hit an arrow left, right, it will take off. It'll lift up, take off, just hold the button down, and I'll drop now. Lead out, boom. Okay, will it repeat? Well, you know, the rules in the code might, hear that squeal? Might indicate that it has to go all the way to the right. I was going to guess that if I use the up-down key or left-right at any moment that it would not repeat. But it looks like the code in this dude has it going all the way over here and then coming right back, which is kind of crazy. You would think it would just come boop right back to the beginning of a 45. Okay. So I'm done with this one. So I hit stop and it's returning. So if you go up, down, it's Q. If you go left, right, it'll Q and then move left to right for you. So it kind of automatically lifts it up. It parks it fine over here at the end every time with the start stop button. But one test that I really am scared to do, but I'm going to do it anyway, is what if I have nothing on it all? So the old kid test. Start. Okay. Cool. Cool. It lifted up and set back down. So let's reset the whole thing. We'll power it off. Power it on. And we'll do the start stop again. Lifts up, sets back down, says no way, no record on there. So that portion works. But that's about it. This is a very big unit to have no real fancy settings, right? The movement, mechanism movement's all here. It doesn't come up on the door. There's no opto that's scanning any records or anything like the Pioneer does. The theory of operation, the service manual in this, it's not so complicated because it doesn't have to go through all the different details like the Pioneer that I checked out earlier. So very basic unit. I think you could compare this to the Sharp that I reviewed or just inspected and did kind of a product overview. And it's a lot smaller. It's kind of cuter. But I don't know if I had a brand new, or let's just say a better quality version of this, and a little higher end stylus cartridge combo, might really be into it. But of the three that I've done just recently, the Pioneer is the most impressive and definitely needs a new stylus, but has so much more technology going on that if you had to have one, I would select that. The JVC here, really nice way to get started in linear. Same with that Sharp, the RP unit. That's it.